The final strength in really great photographs is that they suggest more than just what they show literally. Photography and poetry both center on metaphor. My subject has fundamentally, for 40 years, been the American West. The first serious photography I did that had any success to it began in Colorado. Living in Colorado Springs at the time, I started to photograph along the emerging suburban strip. I hiked around taking pictures of the tract houses and highways. I came into the darkroom and printed them, and I was really surprised. I thought I was taking pictures of things that I hated. But there was something about these pictures. They were unexpectedly, disconcertingly glorious. And from that grew a project called The New West, which really was the first serious work I did. I'd like to document what's glorious in the West and remains glorious, even despite what we've done to it. I'd like to be very truthful about that. But I also want to show what is disturbing and what needs correction. The best way to do that, and it's the way every artist dreams of, is to show it at the same time in the very same rectangle. The effort is to find that perfectly balanced frame where everything fits. It's not exactly the same as life. It's life seen better. There's a picture of mine that I'm happy with. The bottom of the picture is a kind of bowl of dark trees. In this bowl is the city of Boulder, and beyond it is a view of the plains. And to me, that's a successful picture because it does suggest some of the contradictory nature of the Western experience. Similarly, I took a picture once of a woman silhouetted in a tract house window. And in one sense, that's a picture of the saddest kind of isolation and most inhumane building. But also raining down over this picture onto the roof and the lawn is glorious high-altitude light. There's no light like Colorado, and you can see it in this picture. It's this absolutely sublime light. Your decision to make a photograph is a kind of seduction, and the seduction is worked by light. Many, many times, thousands of exposures were made in a state of helplessness. I simply had to do that. There was nothing could keep me from pressing the trigger. Most of my pictures of the ocean were taken from the South Jetty and the Oregon side of the mouth of the Columbia River. In 5 or 10 minutes, the whole surface of the sea would change. To retake a landscape picture is almost impossible. But it's even more so for seascapes. It was a wonderful experience. It was just surrendering yourself to something. Every photographer wants to do books for obvious reasons. They reach a wider audience than exhibitions do, and they allow the audience to consider the work over a longer period of time. Putting pictures next to each other inevitably influences the nature of both pictures. We work hundreds upon hundreds of hours. A major book will require that in terms of editing. And that's what Sherston, my wife, has helped me with. That, together with being my text editor for my entire working life and our married life together. She's the person whom I have absolute trust in. Almost every book begins with a gift, a picture you didn't expect. There are a lot of surprises in photography, and if you're not interested in surprises, you shouldn't be a photographer. It's one of the great enlivening blessings of the medium. At your best, it teaches you to try to remain open to new experience, because the gifts are sometimes just really exciting. I took pictures in Southern California over a period of 3 years. The strange thing is that although Southern California, of course, stands under this pall of smog, nonetheless the light that filters down through that smog is extraordinary. It's an amazingly verdant, if somewhat ominous, landscape. Very beautiful country, still. After I spent some time working in California, I then began to turn to the Northwest. The book Turning Back is fundamentally about deforestation. It's not just a matter of exhaustion of resources. I do think there is involved an exhaustion of spirit. Look at that, all those little industrial trees, not a single tree in sight that's over 35, 40 years old.
Yeah.
I think the reason I care about that awful place was not only that it sat within about 6 feet of the road, that they had the temerity to cut this tree, but this contemptuous beer can. Boy, does that capture what this landscape does to the spirit. It brings out everything desperately close to nihilism in everybody who passes by. It's a breeding ground for contempt. Some of the earliest memories I have with my father are him teaching me how to saw wood and hammer nails. If you learn it early, it becomes mysteriously central and helpful to your health of spirit. It's mainly just a wonderful way to relate to the world in another way. It's like you might use music. You can remember things in your hands, and you can know things with your hands that you can't know with your head. Edward Thomas observed that people and trees are, quote, imperfect friends, unquote, citing the tragic nature of people and the silence of trees. There are, however, times of harmony, with Lombardy poplars, for instance, whose thirst and fragility might tempt us to cut them down, but whose beauty gives us pause. They seem to say with us what we could not say perfectly by ourselves. I will praise thee, O Lord, with my whole heart. This is a wonderful poplar that Kirsten and I found in the high desert of Oregon. We spent about 8 hours over 2 days photographing this tree in different lights at different hours. I have yet to know anybody who does not have some response to poplars. There's a voice, and thank goodness it's there. You know, if you haven't loved a tree enough to, if not hug it, at least want to walk up to it and touch it, as if you're touching a profound mystery. If that experience has eluded you, I feel bad for you. This was such a dramatic place. I think both you and I knew that something had to come out of this kind of valley of death. And then we found these enormous stumps. And you went and sat down, and I thought, God, there it is. There's the posture that conveys the utter sorrow one feels here. What a place.
Now, what strikes me is the fact that it's a black and white landscape with a tiny fringe of green sometimes. And that's how I think of that place.
I was just going to say, that's almost what it was. I remember there didn't seem to be anything possible to say, and then we read some lines by W.S. Merwin. After an age of leaves and feathers, someone dead thought of this mountain as money and cut the trees that were here in the wind, in the rain at night. It is hard to say it. Beauty, which I admit to being in pursuit of, is an extremely suspect word among many in the art world. But I don't think you can get along without it. It's a confirmation, frankly, of meaning in life.
To learn more about Art 21, Art in the 21st Century, and its educational resources, please visit us online at pbs.org. Art 21, Art in the 21st Century is available on DVD. The companion book to the program is also available. To order, call PBS Home Video at 1-800-PLAY-PBS.